Hello, dear students. You're welcome once again for this wonderful lesson. Now, it has been our custom to remind you about taking precautions just because of the COVID-19. So keep in mind that you have to wash your hands always with running water plus soap, but also try to keep distance. Now, you're welcome once again as we talk about the importance of culture. We have been learning about the aspects of culture as well as outdated traditions and customs, but we also looked upon ways that we can use to abandon, ways that we can use to eliminate these outdated traditions and customs. Now, I have a question, a simple question for you this time. Is culture important to us? Having looked upon the aspects of culture, including the traditions and customs, including sports and games, including dressing styles, including housing styles, and many others, do you think culture is important to us? Of course, importance can be positive or negative, that's possible, but why is culture important to us? Now, that will be part of our discussion today about importance of culture. It's well understood that culture is important. Now, to start with, culture is a unifying factor. Culture brings people together. Number one, I have said culture brings people together. Brings people together. That is to say, culture is a unifying factor. When I was starting this subtopic, I said in Tanzania there are more than 120 tribes. Now imagine you can go to every corner of Tanzania. I'm coming from the northern part of Tanzania, you come from the southern part of Tanzania, but just because of language, our national language, which is Kiswahili, we have been brought together and we can live together. Imagine people from different parts of this country and even out of the country. Just because of language, we can understand one another and we can live together, we can share stuffs, and we can live in peace and harmony. Now, think about a person who doesn't understand the language that you're speaking in. That person cannot interact well with you. You cannot do things together. You cannot cooperate just because you don't understand one another. But Kiswahili has been a unifying factor. You know, Kiswahili is language. Kiswahili as a language is a unifying factor. So it has brought us together, and today we are living as brothers. Now, imagine you meet, let's say you are in the US or in the UK or elsewhere, you meet with a person who is speaking Kiswahili. One might be coming from the northern part of Tanzania, you come from the southern part of Tanzania, or from the western part of Tanzania, and another one from the eastern part of Tanzania. But just because you speak in one language, which is Kiswahili, you just become brothers. A person that you have never met before is becoming just like your blood brother. Why? Language. So, it is a unifying factor. So, culture brings people together, and I can give an example of language, maybe I may say Kiswahili language. Kiswahili as a language. So that's number one. Number two, culture identify us. It does identify us. Our identity is hidden in our culture. Sometimes we behave in a way, in a certain way, just because of how we are brought up. Now, bringing up children, it's part of culture. A person who is brought up in the villages, for example, may behave in a different way, may do things in a different way from a person who is born in urban areas, and likewise, a person who is born in this so-called underdeveloped country, who is not well exposed, may act in a different way than a person who is born in developed countries. So, if you're born in urban areas, for example, and you are well exposed to the things of this world, automatically you will borrow or you will import culture from other different nations, and you can be in a good position to act like them. But guess what? Culture does identify us. Now, before I move on, let me just write it here that culture identify us. Think about a person from northern part of Tanzania, for example, Maasai. Wherever a Maasai will go, a Maasai person will go, will be identified. And because we talked about their dressing styles, now you think about Rubega. Think about their dressing style called Rubega. Rubega can identify a Maasai wherever he or she is. One might be within our country or out of the country, but if you dressed like a Maasai, you are in Rubega, one can easily identify you and automatically know that you are coming from Tanzania, and most especially Maasai tribe, just because you have that identity. Yes, for us we don't have national dress. It's never there, just like other countries like Nigeria and elsewhere. But we have got some tribes that have got their own, their brand, if I may say, their own way of dressing that identifies them. You think about people around the coast, Dar es Salaam, Pwani, and so on. These people we saw when we talked about dressing styles. For example, men along the coast, they do wear their kanzu and cape. Now, you can easily get to know that this person is coming from the coast just because of the dressing style. And likewise, you meet a person from some other countries, like those that have got national dress, you can easily identify that person. So, culture remains as an identity. It remains an identity. But number three, you will agree with me that through culture, people earn money, income. So it is a source of income. It is a source of income. Source of income can be either an individual, it can be an individual income, or it can be national income. It can be an individual income or national income. If you can remember well, all people that have engaged themselves in, I will give you just one example of artists, let's say singers, musicians. Every time they sing their songs, they compose their songs, they will record them and they will maybe play them, they can sell their products. Selling their products, they are earning money. But through that very activity, the government can earn money. So it is a source of revenue to both an individual and the government. Now today, we have got people who are specialized in works of art. For example, we have people who specialized in fine art. These guys are good in drawing, they are writing, they are painting, and so on and so forth. And they are selling their products. At the end of the day, they will earn money. They don't have any other work to do, but they have decided, of course, it comes out of talent, that's possible. So I will encourage you to do what is in your heart. Of course, we do encourage you to keep on studying very hard. You keep on studying, that's a good thing. But as you continue with your studies, what you feel you're good at, keep on doing that. You never know. One day, you may channel yourself into that particular activity, and that would be your source of income. Of course, you can have several sources of income, but you can also have the main source of income and some minor sources of income. So you can find out that through culture, people have been earning money. The government have been earning money. Now you see how culture is important. You know, sometimes if you don't talk about these aspects of culture one after another and try to see how everyone can be beneficial to you, you may overlook things and not consider them. And at the end of the day, you don't make it just because maybe you are just thinking to become a doctor, you're thinking to become maybe a teacher and so on. But there are many other things that you can do, and that is possibly what you're intended for your life. Now, before I move on, I want to take you back to maybe some cultural activities. I have seen this several times. We have people who are carving woods in our country. You go to Mwenge, you find the Makonde around Mwenge there. These guys are carving woods. They have got such wonderful stuffs, but most of people who do buy such carvings, they are coming from abroad. Whenever they will pay visit to our country, when they will go to maybe our national parks, they will visit our national parks and some other parts of this country, they will end up looking for these stuffs. So they will buy these carved stuffs, but you see, they are just costful. They are costful. You can find one item at 300,000, 500,000, 1 million. I once saw one which costs about 5 Tanzanian million shillings. Imagine 5 million Tanzanian shillings. Now, it means that whoever has been carving this particular wood is intending to sell his or her product, that he or she may earn money, because that is his source of income. So whenever they will sell their products, they will earn money. We have people who are dealing with the basketry. They are making baskets. We have people who are making mats, and they're just wonderful. So they're earning money. But you also need to understand that through culture we can learn a lot of things. So it can be a source of education. Source of education. Source of education. For your information, the ancient societies didn't have the so-called formal education. Education can be categorized into 3 areas. Number 1, it is the formal education whereby somebody sits down under a teacher and in a classroom is writing, is reading, and so on. Number 2, we have got non-formal education, and number 3, we have informal education. Now think about kind of school our grandparents went. Maybe your grandparents went to formal education. That's possible. But okay, you can go as far as great-grandparents. Which school did they go? Especially if you're talking about Tanzania, for example. Anyway, because if you go to some other countries like Egypt, where education in Africa probably began, and some other countries, this formal education started long time ago. That's possible. But think about our country. In our country, our great-grandparents could not go to school and be in the classroom under a teacher. No, there was nothing like that. Our grandparents used to have the so-called initiation ceremonies. I talked about this during the previous lesson, and I said our grandparents would take their children, especially teens, they would take them to the forest and stay there maybe for a month. They would take cows and bulls, goats, sheep, and so on. They would slaughter them there, they would dance, they would teach their children how to behave. They would teach their children responsibilities. They would teach their sons how to become good husbands, how to become a man, how to become a responsible man. And with girls, they would be taught how to become good wives, good ladies. Now, that was education. But still, somebody could learn through the environment. You go for hunting, your parents, your brothers, you see, just look at what they are doing and how they are doing things, how they are hunting animals. You get that little by little. You learn, by seeing you can learn, by hearing you can learn. So they would be watching or observing, but they would be practicing. So education by then, it was much practical. It wasn't a theoretical whereby you could sit down and write and try to answer questions. No. I may ask you a question. Think about the time that you had not started school. Can you tell me if you had not known what a knife is? Because I'm very sure that you have a knife at home. You have chairs at home. You have tables. You have beds. You have this and that. Now, the question is, who taught you that a table looks like this? It's not a teacher. It's your parents. If you have your parents happen to have a pair of scissors at home and it is there, maybe you're playing with that pair of scissors, your parents would tell you that this is a pair of scissors. You can use it in this way, in that way. So by the time you come to school, you already know that. So that is to say, you come to school having known some things already. Now, was that formal education? No, it was informal education. Today we have got good masons, people who can build houses or buildings. They have never been in school. I know a number of people who have never been to school talking about formal education, but they have got knowledge on how to build up a house. That means they must have gone through the so-called informal education. Another importance of culture is entertainment. Entertainment. Having talked about music, having talking about songs, having talking about traditional music stuffs, having talked about some modern music stuffs like the guitar, violin, and many others. Now, you try to think how the world would be if there is nothing like songs, if there is nothing like music instruments. You know, I'm trying to imagine the ancient time, during ancient time, when these things had not been invented. But today, you might be so tired, you know, when you go home, back home after school, you can maybe sit down as you relax there, as you sleep, or you just sit and have just a good moment watching, playing. You can have a music, a soft music that can entertain you, can help you to just regain energy. Now, it's entertainment. Maybe if you like guitar, like I do, you can grab your guitar and try to play as you sing some nice songs. You can play it. Now, as you play, you refresh yourself, you refresh your mind. So it is entertainment. Today, there are people who go to maybe different concerts. They will watch musicians. They will watch people singing songs, playing drums, playing guitars, and so on, playing piano. It's all about entertainment. There is no another reason as why people should go to such places, but they just go because they want to be entertained. Now, when you get entertained, you just relax, your mind relaxes, and you become happy, and life moves on. Now, having talked about importance of culture in connection to our topic, which is patriotism in the community, I want to ask you a question. If you do maintain your culture, especially these positive ones, because we talked about the outdated traditions and customs, that means that's just a culture that should be abandoned. Now, talking about the positive ones, and you do maintain your culture, these good traditions and customs, do you think you are a good person? Do you think you're a good individual or not? you've got to answer that question. If you love your country, but you don't love our culture, or you don't love your culture, are you patriotic? The answer will be no. But if you love your country and you do maintain this culture of our country, of our nation, that means you are just a patriotic. I hope you have been following me, and you've got to understand that culture is very important to us. Culture is very important. The most important thing is that you observe good cultural practices. I said, you observe, you maintain good cultural practices. But the bad ones, the outdated ones, those should be abandoned. So leave them aside and move on with good cultural practices. Now the question could be, what are these good cultural practices? If we have learned about the bad cultural practices, of which I call them outdated traditions and customs. Now, I will ask you a question again. Is respecting elders a good cultural practice, or it is not? So if you're brought up in a certain society where children are taught, they are raised and they are nurtured well in such a way that they can take good care of their grandparents, in such a way that they can behave in a nice way, and they do follow that, obviously you will agree with me that respecting elders is a good cultural practice. Now, you also think about, I mentioned respect. I can also talk about maybe appreciating appreciating people around you. Now, if I may ask you, is it a good thing to appreciate people around you? Somebody has done a good thing to you. Do you say thank you? Do you show that you value what has been done unto you? Now, if you do appreciate, if you do value that, is that a good culture or it is not? Obviously, it's good. Do you love? Do you show love? Do you love your fellows? Or do you express love to your fellows? Imagine you live in a community whereby nobody cares about you. Nobody loves you. Everybody is despising you. Will you feel comfortable? The answer is no. That is to say, if you express love to your fellows, you show love to your fellows, it's a good thing. That is a good culture. It's a good cultural practice that should be carried forward. That you should carry it on. Because it is good. Yeah. So, another thing is punctuality. punctuality. Think about an appointment that you have been having with somebody, and you go to a place maybe 20 minutes later. It's not a good thing. So that's a bad cultural practice if you delay. Now, but if you do keep time, you do value your fellow's time and you are punctual. But if you do keep time, that is to say, it's a good cultural practice that it should be carried on. That will be the end of our lesson. Thank you for listening to me. I wish you a nice time. You try to go through all what you have been learning, and maybe you can still find out some more things that shows importance of culture. Let me wish you a nice time. Bye bye.